It is time for yours truly, the Mio, to give you his thoughts on MMA. We're coming after this UFC 278 card. Couple of corrections, actually, I feel I have to make after listening to the thing. I kept referring to Sean Woodson in the breakdown as Grant Dawson. I apologize. I apologize. That's a weird one because that not remotely similar fighters. Um, but I did do that, and listening back, the breakdown I gave of Kamaru Usman made it seem like Kamaru Usman was still with Hooft versus with Whitman. What I meant by that is that a lot of the fundamental building blocks of Usman's striking have come from Henry Hooft. And there is suggestion that him and Hooft do still talk. Hooft is still ostensibly in his corner, not physically, but as a advisor of sorts. That as long as he's not facing an actual hoof fighter, there will be fingerprints there. And that Whitman is, of course, the current head coach of him, the current mastermind of his game plan, which is perfectly suited because Whitman, in my opinion, despite the run that his fighters are on here of losing 3 title fights, Gaethje, Rose Namajunas, and now Usman, is one of the great masterminds of the game in terms of putting together a game plan and seemingly a very different game plan for different fighters, which is very impressive. Even though, bad run right now. So those are 2 corrections I have to make. Sort of MMA news update. Tony Ferguson and the Leech is being targeted for a 170-pound fight. I'll break it down more in detail, but it's a weird booking because you would think, and maybe they view the Leech this way, that you would use Ferguson to kind of launch someone up into the stratosphere. And the problem is by having Ferguson go up a weight class, anyone he fights, this is not about the Leech, but anyone he fights up a weight class is kind of inherently not getting that boost. And if you're looking to get Ferguson a win and get him back on track, one, I don't think going up a weight class is the right answer. But 2, I don't think the Leech is the right answer because either you want to go high risk, high reward, or you want to go low risk with a comparatively high reward. I don't think the Leech kind of fits in either of that. I think he's kind of like medium risk, medium reward almost. So anyways, that's the news we got coming out of this, or news outside of this fight card to talk about. Kayla Harrison declaring herself the queen of women's MMA. The weird thing about her is that she said if those 3 Brazilians would stop running. And I'm honestly trying to figure out who the 3rd Brazilian is, because obviously Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, those are obviously 2. The other best pound for pound candidates on the big side, the 2 super fights she has available. Is the 3rd Brazilian she's talking about Larissa Pachenko? Because if so, that makes absolutely no sense. Because Pacheco has fought her twice and is going to fight her a 3rd time and went through a tournament to fight her a 3rd time. I don't know. I think this is half the time my problem with like trash talk is like I try to figure out the actual logic to it. and it just doesn't really work. Okay, thoughts on this card. So just a quick overview. Number 1, how much do you think Utah paid to get this card here? Because the Utah Sports Commission was all over this, and yeah, I imagine that there was some significant cash changed hands here to make this fight happen, or to make this card happen. Which I've always, and that's not a conspiracy theory or whatever. That's the world we live in vis-a-vis where the UFC goes, where the UFC hosts its cards. And on the conspiracy theory side, I do think that this was supposed to be kind of a weak card. And on paper it was, and in practice I think it was. It ended on a high note, and it started on a pretty good note. But, the middle part there is fairly ho-hum. We'll get into like specific fights and whatever here in a bit. But it does kind of feel like, because Usman has made noise about boxing predominantly, and Edwards has played hardball in the past, and Luke Rockhold saying some things about fighter pay, and Paulo Costa's been a pain in the ass to work with. It does feel like these are four guys they shoved on a card and were like, hey, you guys think you're big enough to be annoying? Here you go. Let's see what you do. I think this will probably do relatively weak numbers, but and then the next pay-per-view also looks kind of garbage. So we got that to look forward to, I guess. But anyways, let's get into the fight. Main event, Kamaru Usman, the welterweight champion, going for, I can't remember if it was tying Anderson Silva's record or beating Anderson Silva's record for most wins in a row. Leon Edwards rematch that has been years in the making. Was a good fight the first time, and we were looking forward to seeing what was different this time. Could Edwards take the belt home? And the answer is Edwards did take the belt home. First Jamaican-born champion in UFC history. Got the job done with a head kick. And let me gush about Edwards for a moment here. The finishing sequence was lovely. A great 1-2 combination to get Usman leaning and then meet him in the side of the head with that big head kick. That, chef's kiss. That's what that was. That was fantastic. It was great. And he was the first person to take Usman down, took him down in the first round, went right to mount, had an excellent first round. Excellent first round. Had me worried, all kinds of worried that like Edwards had unlocked something in his clinch and his wrestling game that was going to be a significant problem for Usman, or maybe Usman was starting to fade. I don't know what it was, what combination that is. But like a great first round, great finishing sequence, but everything in the middle, kind of like this card actually, not great. And I don't mean not great in the sense of like bad fighting or whatever, but my problem with Leon Edwards' approach to this fight was that it was kind of in the corner advice. It was that I don't think that there was any real plan to but to avoid what lost him the first fight. Interesting enough, because a lot of this fight for rounds 2, 3, and 4 was Usman cutting the cage off, putting Edwards against the fence, unloading with powerful, pretty nice combination punching, and then getting the takedown. And that's what happened the first time. And the fact that we're kind of right back in that same sequence, and the answer appears to have been from Edwards' camp that will just be harder to take down, is concerning. And again, it's not that Edwards did bad work. It's not that Edwards is not an excellent fighter. I would take him almost automatically against almost any welterweight in the world. And there's a list of exactly one welterweight that I would take automatically against him in a rematch, and that is Kamaru Usman. And then I would have to think about like a Colby Covington or a Gilbert Burns or a Chimaev fight. I would have to think about it very closely. I'm not sure where I would go with those fights. But almost anything else, I'd automatically pick him. So this is not a Leon Edwards hate piece or whatever. It's just that we're headed towards a trilogy. After this fight, we have Dana White talking about doing the trilogy in the UK. I don't know what the time frame on that is. But what really changed? And the thing is like people are going insane. People are going insane like this head kick knockout changed their entire perspective on the fight. And I don't really get that because, I mean, to over-dramatize this, because the fundamental matchup of Sarah and GSP and this fight are not the same. But we did see Matt Serra knock out GSP. And then in the rematch, we saw GSP just absolutely take him apart. And there are other examples of this. That the fundamental questions that were not answered by Edwards in this fight are still absolutely there. And you're almost kind of assuming that Usman's just going to fall off and have like kind of a breakdown after this, that first knockout loss, which is possible. Some fighters get knocked out and they never come back from it. Karolina Kowalkiewicz was always kind of my go-to for that, where I honestly thought that a lot of her fight style relied on mental stability and like faith that she was indestructible. And when she was finally finished, when she was finally hurt by Joanna Jędrzejczyk, that there was just no real recovery from that. I don't get that vibe off of Usman. But could that happen? Maybe. And, I've been in the social media arguments, and it kind of comes down to like, a lot of people are like, there's not a lot of repeatability to this, and people are like, it doesn't have to be. He just needs one moment. You're not wrong. You're not mistaken that, like, come Edwards Usman 3, we could, hypothetically, see Leon Edwards go out there and head kick him again. We could see that repeat. But it's hard for me to look at the 8 rounds that this fight is, that these two guys have fought, of which 6 were largely won by Usman, and think, Edwards has a super reliable counter, a super reliable adjustment, a super moment-to-moment winning process to beat Kamaru Usman. Because I don't think he does. This is a classic case of like somebody won, and it's not a fluke. It's not lucky. He meant to do it. He set it up. He executed in those couple of seconds, about 20 seconds probably, better than anyone has done against Usman. And again, he was also the first one to take him down. But there was, 15 plus minutes of that fight where he had nothing in terms of major success against Usman. And it's hard for me to overlook that. It's really hard. So I kind of just gave you a preview for what I think for the trilogy. There's nothing really to do with these guys outside of do the rematch. It's kind of like if Chael Sonnen had actually beaten Anderson Silva. What was next? Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva too. Similar deal here. Co-main event: Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa. Whew. If you absolutely love this fight, that is entirely your prerogative. I've said this. You can get whatever you want out of mixed martial arts. If a sloppy brawl like this one is what you want, please, all the power to you. It's amazing. And part of my brain is right there with you, enjoying every second of this fight, enjoying the motorboating with the blood on the face of Costa when Rockhold at top position in third. When Rockhold is just spamming 4 straight body kicks in a row, my brain is going, yes, yes. Part of it. But part of it is also looking at this as like, you two have gassed out horrendously, and this is this is a fight that I don't think I'll have any interest in rewatching. So like, I'm two minds about it. Like, one hand, great drama, great brawl, super heart-filled performance. But on the other hand, wow, that did not feel that high level. On the other hand, that is the case. I don't have a ton to say about this. Rockhold lost the first 4 minutes of the first round and then kind of got things going. Like, he finished actually kind of finding some stuff. He was getting some reversals in the clinches. He was landing a lot of kicks. He had that shin sleeve on again, so like probably means that that shin is still probably not healed, which is amazing. He was making Costa think about just kind of bull rushing him and crashing into him and making him come up with solutions to actually find his range, which Costa is not great at. But then in the second round, like we're talking, hands on his knees. The highlight, I guess, of the second round was that really, really obvious hook to the balls that Costa hit. And then had to be. I've always wanted this. Mike Beltran does this a lot, where he'll start speaking Spanish, and I watch these fights with my buddy Javier. Shout out to Javier, and he confirms it is Spanish as opposed to like Portuguese. Maybe Beltran's trilingual or something. But no, he goes to Spanish with talking with the Brazilian fighters a lot, and he's talking to Costa in that. And I'm like, does Costa even understand that? Like, I feel like obviously there's a lot of crossover between the two languages, but it is weird. And then in the third run, more of the same. It's a feel-good send-off for Luke Rockhold because he made it the distance. He didn't get knocked out. I was very certain he would get knocked out. His chin has looked quite bad lately. So in that regard, he went out on a war, on a high point. I do hope that this is the retirement for him. I do, because as high pointed as it is to go out on, I don't think he has anything left. I don't think he really wants to have anything left. Like, he did not look like he looked miserable at points of that fight. And that to me is a sign that you're kind of done with the sport. And Rockhold has always claimed and should have other options. Interesting enough, Paulo Costa, this was the final fight on his contract. I really think that you will see him in PFL or Bellator because the way he lost to Israel Adesanya, and honestly everything after that, has been not inspiring that Costa is a guy who's going to win the title. That he's going to be the next big Brazilian champion. And we saw with Shane Burgos that the UFC got heavily outbid by PFL. PFL has a $1 million grand prize at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. And Bellator also has a large prize for their tournament winners. It feels like Paulo Costa going to one of those promotions makes the most financial sense. And there's also just not like a lot I really want to see him do in the UFC, kind of ironically. He's an exciting fighter. Don't get me wrong. He's an exciting fighter. Beast of a physical person. And despite being tired, he keeps going. He keeps going. And if the UFC wants to book him against Dricus du Plessis, which I saw was an idea floated on Twitter, I'm incredibly game for it because that would be fun. And it feels also like what du Plessis wants. It feels like what du Plessis has kind of earned, which is a shot at the top 10. But I don't know. Dana doesn't seem to be the biggest fan of his because he's annoyed Dana, and that's the cardinal sin. And we do know that the UFC doesn't really view keeping fighters under contract as important enough to actually give raises. So one would think one of those two entities are going to pay more. That's kind of fascinating. Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili. This went kind of a lot like I thought it would. I thought there would be some takedowns from Dvalishvili. He could not get them, so like credit to that. But Aldo was shut down by the pressure. He was shut down by the threat of the takedown. He was shut down by the forward footwork of Dvalishvili. It wasn't a super entertaining fight. I will say that. One of the duller Aldo fights. And I think it's just because Aldo did not want to get involved in a heavy firefight with Merab, and his way of not doing that was just to kind of be low output, to be super kind of defensively stable, not take a lot of damage, if at all any, and get out of here with the win. I personally scored it round 1 for Aldo, rounds 2 and 3 for Merab. Merab definitely won the third. There were some people talking about him winning the set, or about Aldo winning the second round. I don't think that works. I don't. And it's not the takedowns, it's not the control. It's just Aldo's lack of actual achievement. He landed 11 significant strikes per UFC stats, 25 total strikes in the round to 11 significant strikes for Rob and 62 total. So he didn't particularly hurt Marab in the second round. He was heavily outlanded. We're talking a rate of more than 2-1. Defending takedowns, as much as like going for takedowns and not getting them don't win Marab the round, just defending takedowns doesn't win the round for Aldo. One judge had this 30-27. I don't know if I can give that first round to Marab. Again, official numbers, also kind of matching my headcanon. Even strikes landed. All those were the better ones. I would have to give it to Aldo. But I don't even think that that's a travesty. Right guy won. And Marab moves on to, I kind of hope, the winner of Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley. I say this because I obviously think that's going to be Peter Yan. And about the only way I think to gin up actual good feelings for a Yan Aljamain Sterling trilogy match, which probably at some, like, Yan will get another title shot at some point. But, like, going out there and beating Aljo's teammate would, I don't know, maybe add something that makes that a little bit more palatable for me. It's just kind of weird going into a trilogy at any time with one fighter down 0-2. And for Aldo, the fifth round guys suggested Dominic Cruz. Why not? Why not do Dom Cruz versus Aldo? Two WEC legends. Let them throw down and have kind of a big Legends moment, because they both can still fight, but at the same time, I don't have a tremendous amount of faith that they can fight at the absolute pinnacle of bantamweight. So why not take that step back, make it a Legends fight, and do that? Lucy Pudilova made not necessarily short work of Yana and Wu, not necessarily easy work of Yana and Wu, but aside from an armbar threat from Yana and Wu, she didn't do much. She got outstruck. She got outgrappled. What were the official stats here? They only had a 39-26 on strikes. That's actually kind of surprising. Interesting that they didn't give Wu credit for the armbar submission attempt, which I would have given. But, it wasn't super close or anything, but, like, there was enough there for that to be considered an attempt, in my opinion. But welcome back, Lucy Pudilova. You got the win. I still have worries that she hasn't beaten anyone super physical. Like, who is the best athletic specimen that Lucy Pudilova has actually beaten? Because her 3 UFC wins are over people at definitively the lower end of the physicality department. Jiyeon Kim, Sarah Moras, and Yana Wu. And her run in Octagon didn't really have a great win anywhere. Her best win was Carol Yarawaki, maybe? I don't know. She's not super high physicality either. Like, that's the thing, is that she doesn't have a super elusive range style that, like, emphasizes a tremendous amount of speed or high levels of technique or an ability to find good counters or an ability to really do much. Like, almost everything she kind of does ends up just kind of in this kind of close range clinch aspect of the fight that it's not that she's bad at it. It's that I just don't trust it against anyone with a high level of physicality. I also have no idea why this was on the main card. No idea. I don't have a satisfactory next opponent for Pudilova. I put Penny Kianzad in there. That just seems like a fun fight. Doesn't necessarily. It feels like a fight that maybe asks some questions because Kianzad is not a super athlete by any means, but is a good athlete, and might do some good things there. And for Yanan Wu, she's lost 4 straight and probably is in the Pudilova spot where she gets cut. Probably. I don't know. Her game has always felt really incomplete and similarly not really backed by physicality. Speaking of not backed by physicality, Harry Hunsucker got knocked out by Tyson Pedro in 65 seconds. Not much more to say than that because, like, the problem for Hunsucker, he's been knocked out 3 times straight in the first round in the UFC. 4 times if you include his Dana White Contender Series loss to Jared Vanderaa. And there were some people saying, okay, but what if he goes down to 205? Like, is he a beastly physical presence? Was it just a matter of, like, too small, too much power, whatever? And the answer is no. Because I think his biggest issue is he's not fast. He's not technical as a striker. And Pedro took him. Again, no idea why this was on the main card. Like these two fights, I have no idea. I have no idea why 40% of the main card was on the main card. I assume he's just going to get cut. I know he came in as a short notice replacement and earned some goodwill, and that's maybe why he's gotten 3 fights while being knocked out in the first round, or gotten even a second chance off of the Dana White Contender Series. And I'm all about like a second chance for a dude who stepped up and took it on short notice, because that should be rewarded. But there is a level of you are just getting absolutely detonated in these fights that we need to look at. And he should be shown the door. And for Tyson Pedro, I kind of like the idea of Nikolai Negumereanu, because like with Pedro, my questions essentially boil down to he was out for a long time. He had serious injuries for a long time. And what he's done since coming back hasn't really told me where he is, because he's taken 2 wins over fighters that he should have beaten. Ike Villanueva, Harry Hunsucker, like bottom of the division type guys, not very athletic, not likely to really enforce much of a game on him. Going to let him do his thing. Okay, fine. And I like that. I actually really like that coming off of the long layoff. I like that rebuild. I don't like it being on a pay-per-view, main card, but I like the rebuild. Now, it's time to maybe test that like a little bit. And Negumereanu is a guy who is not particularly physically imposing himself. He's not super athletic. He's pretty strong, but he's not like he does nothing that you can't prepare for. But he is super tough, super durable, and he will be trying to walk you down at all times. And that feels like the test we need. My boy, Marcin Tybura. A lot of people were calling for this to be a draw. I'm talking about Tybura versus Alexander Romanov. The simple answer is it depends how you scored the first round. And a lot of people wanted to score 10-8 because Tybura did exceedingly little in that first round. I want to say, frankly, nothing. He landed 0 significant strikes, 1 total strike, apparently. Got taken down twice, controlled for 4 minutes, 27 seconds. Here's the problem. I have no problem if this becomes the 10-8 standard. I have no problem if Derek Cleary's 10-8 round here in the first round becomes a 10-8 round, because I've said this before. I want more 10-8 rounds. I want 10-7 rounds. I want what's a 10-8 now to become like a 10-7. And then this can be a 10-8. And then a small window of victory can be a 10-9. Because it gives a lot more diversity. I want to see draw rounds even. My problem here is that it just hasn't been. Like to get a 10-8 in recent memory, you have to hurt the guy. You have to hurt the guy very significantly. And at no point did Romanov do that. The most damaging thing Romanov did was that first takedown, where he lifts up Tybura and gives him a slam. That was the most damaging thing he did. He landed 14 significant strikes, 64 total strikes. Nothing of that was truly damaging. And that is my problem. Like, if you want this to be a 10-8 round, I don't argue it. I think that this round should be worth more than what Tybura did in the second and third round. But it has not been treated like that historically. And unless you're going to tell the fighters that we're emphasizing that kind of thing for a 10-8 round, I don't think it's fair. And then Romanov kind of gassed out and did pretty poorly in rounds 2 and 3. Probably the thing that like summed up this fight is that I want to say it was the third round, might have been the second round, Romanov breaks out the Ali like shuffle. Yeah, it was in the third round. And then throws a spinning kick. But he's gassed out and he isn't throwing a jab. He doesn't throw in combination really. Like his stand-up has no substance to it. And I'm really happy that he lost this fight. And that's going to sound weird because, Mike, aren't you a Romanov fan? Didn't you say in your breakdown that you wanted him to win this fight because Tybura in the top 10 is something we've seen and it's not super interesting? Yes. But Romanov needed a loss to learn from his mistakes. Because the win against Juan Espino by technical decision didn't teach him. Because he's still, again, this fight at altitude, he's out there doing slams when he doesn't really need to. He's out there gassing out. He's out there throwing stupid stuff on the feet. And hopefully this loss will teach him to learn on that. And for Tybura, let me have Tybura versus Alexei Olenek, please. And let me have Romanov versus Ilir Latifi, because that's probably a fight that he can't slam him. Now, I do appreciate that he is slimming down. Like, there's some things that make me think Romanov is learning. Like, he's getting lighter. It looks like he's in better shape. A little bit of the love handles is coming off. A little bit of the extra weight is coming off. But the results aren't there yet. Now, granted, this fight at high altitude, probably, I don't know why you would book a heavyweight fight in Utah because of that altitude. I also don't know why they wouldn't book some Utah locals or at least some people who train at high altitude, because that's kind of Utah fight making 101. But hey, one judge did score to 10-8, like I said, Derek Cleary. I'm not mad about it, but it doesn't meet the standard that we have had for a 10-8 time and time again with this highly damage-based scoring criteria. Jared Gordon beat Leonardo Santos in a relatively sad fight in the sense that it was Santos kind of being gassed out without really having done much, which makes sense. He's 42 years old. It's why I picked Gordon to win the fight. I was hoping for a finish. I was hoping Gordon would go for the kill. He didn't. He did throw a lot. Didn't feel like it. Apparently landed something like 200 something strikes. Landed 116 sig strikes, which was the second highest total of the night. So like the activity was good, but it didn't feel live, like it was overly active. And got the win. I'm always happy about that. For Santos, I just want to see him like retire into like doing fun grappling matches and coaching. One would hope that that's an option. One would hope it's an option because I don't really want to see him fight anymore. It's not that I don't think he can win. Like, he's still a dangerous grappler. There is every so often he pulls out a nice counterpunch that like reminds you of like, hey, I was once a guy that you really actually were worried about pressuring and getting overly aggressive against. But there's not a lot of substance behind it anymore. And I don't think there's a fix. Like, that's the other thing. I don't see how you fix that for your next fight. And for Jared Gordon, I've got Drakkar Klose because it'd be a fun fight and it'd be a step up from Klose, who's been getting fairly easy fights lately. It would be somewhat of a step up for Gordon as well. Let's see what happens. Sean Woodson versus Luis Saldana. Now, this is a fight that actually actively pissed me off. Okay, so round one, we have a 9-8 round. Who the heck has seen that a long time? Did everyone give this a 9-8 round? Was it a 9-8 across the board? Let me pull up the scorecards here. Wow, okay. So not a single judge. Derek Cleary, Michael Bell, and Rick Montanez all scored that 9-9. Derek Cleary, you scored that 9-9. A round in which Woodson almost got finished twice. But you gave Romanov a 10-8 round. The world we live in. This ended up being a split draw with Bell giving the second round to Saldana. Don't have a problem with that. And the third round to Woodson. Don't have a problem with that card. That's just okay card. Cleary, like I said, the only problem is you gave a 10-8 to Romanov. You gave Woodson the second and third. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And Rick Montanez gave the second and third to Woodson. I don't really have a problem with that, other than like the complete lack of 10-8s, given that a judge gave a 10-8 later on to Romanov. So yeah, Saldana hurts Woodson badly, drops him, doesn't finish him, walks away, drops him again, and in the follow-up this time, very illegally knees him. Now, I have always said this, I don't think knees to the head of a downed opponent should actually be illegal, but they are. And you have to obey the rules. And Saldana didn't. And then he became useless the rest of the fight. Like, Woodson was like still clearly not all there, like throughout the entire second and third rounds. And Saldana was just passive and deflated. And I'm annoyed. I'm legitimately annoyed. We did get a buggy choke in the second round by Woodson, but it was pretty obvious for like a fairly long time that it wasn't really working. Also, shout out to Javier again. He was like, "Why would you go for the takedown?" And then Woodson threw the buggy choke on him, as if again, my young Padawan is learning. I don't know. Like I said, I don't care how you score the second and third round here. They're. Let's look at the stats just for shits and giggles. So 6 strikes. 44-34 in the first round, 18-15 in the second round, 29-24 in the third round. These all favor Saldana. He probably should have won. Probably. But he was also just dumb. He was also just dumb. Saldana annoys me. It annoys me because here's the thing with Saldana. Like, there's all the physical ability you'd want. There's all the creativity. There's a lot of technical ability. I just think he has the worst decision-making process I have seen in quite some time. Not going for the finish on the first one. The illegal knee. The general porous defense that he engages in on a regular basis. The fact that he clearly understands that footwork is key, but has the most predictable footwork. It annoys me because it's like, you've lost several times and I don't know what lessons he's learned from any of his losses. For a while there, it looked like he had finally learned that like just going slower meant he wouldn't gas out. but I don't think he has any idea how to actually make a lower pace style work. Anyways, let's get off this fight. Woodson versus Josh Kulabau, I think would be a fun fight, and then I got Saldana against like Danny Chavez, and as a battle of two dudes who frustrate me, and I don't even know if Chavez is still on the roster. AJ Fletcher, Angelo Losa. This one I actually really liked. Shout out to Chonky Tim Crater. The former crazy Tim Crater has definitely put some poundage on. He was in AJ Fletcher's corner. I thought the first round was really good for Losa. He started to really find good counters, realizing that Fletcher didn't really move his head all that much, and putting it together, like exploiting the weaknesses of Fletcher's game, defending takedowns, and doing a really good job. I thought he won that first round, and then the second round, Fletcher realizes this ain't working. Man, he goes nuts. He hurts him badly. He has him rocked. I thought the fight probably should have been stopped, and people will be like, well, in hindsight, it definitely shouldn't have been stopped because Losa went on to win this fight. But at the same time, he did turn his back and run away at points. Normally, that's a really bad sign. I would have had no problem with this being stopped. But Beltran gets bailed out by the fact that, yes, Losa did win. Fletcher blew his gas load, goes for a takedown, ends up on his back. Probably saves it from being a 10-8 round, in my opinion. And then in the third round, Fletcher's just done. He literally falls on his butt after throwing a kick, goes for a sad takedown, ends up on his back, eating elbows. Again, a round that you could go a 10-8 round with. But just because, Losa, I think, landed an exceeding amount there. Let's have a look. What are the official numbers, please? Only 38-4. Yeah, okay, I gotta take that back. In terms of 6 strikes, 116-14 overall. Fletcher did essentially nothing. But again, like if Romanov versus Tybura is a 10-8 first round, this was a 10-8 third round. And I think only one judge gave a 10-8. I like Losa. I like Angelo Losa a lot. He puts together. He's got enough physicality that I think he can do some things. He seems to adjust. He seems to actually make good decisions in the fight. Reasonably high fight IQ fighter. A little bit worried that his game is that of a taller man. A little bit. And he's not that tall. Like, he looks tall in this fight because he's fighting AJ Fletcher, who has a 67-inch reach, which is very, very low. Put him in. I don't know who to put him in with. I put Ramiz Brahima in there just because he's a guy who's looking for a fight at a similar level with some provenness that Losa has yet to beat. But I also don't love the fight. And for Fletcher, I've got Orion Koshi, which is probably a fight that's not going to happen, but it's a fight where I would kind of like to see, okay, how much does Fletcher have just on raw physicality? Because he's gassed out in both fights, but he's gassed out in both fights having to fight dudes who had really good counter games that were punishing him. What can he do if he doesn't have to worry about that? Does he have 15 minutes of cardio? And what is he, but long term, what is he going to do about the fact that he has like zero reach on these guys? Like 67-inch reach is very, very short. It's a bit of a problem. Amir Albazi kind of had his way with Francisco Figueiredo. Not really much to say. Gets the rear naked choke. Looks exceptionally smooth on the ground. Wasn't panicked by Figueiredo going for a leg lock when they went to the ground. I thought Figueiredo was getting a slight striking edge. I do have significant problems with Albazi striking. I think he's very, very wooden. But once he got the takedown, he showed what he had to bring to the table. He showed the smoothness of his ground game. It is buttery smooth. And the only thing I kind of like the whole fake out with the translator with Joe Rogan, because we know Albazi does speak English. He's from the UK/Sweden. born in is it Iraq or Iran? I think it's Iraq. And the only thing I really had a problem with from here is he's like, thank you, Dana White, for the flyweight division. I'm like, dude, Dana White tried to kill this division twice. Like, no flyweight should be giving Dana White call-outs in the post-fight. None. Gentlemen, this division has succeeded in spite of the man, not because of the man. I would love to see him fight Tim Elliott, because Tim Elliott is that super tough, scrappy kind of dude who would give us a longer look at the wood striking. Like, what can Albazi do against a guy who's not super dangerous from like a one strike to another strike, or even super technical, but a guy who, because of his defensive wrestling, because of his strength, because of his movement, will probably force Albazi to stand with him for a bit, but whose best game is a grappling game, so he'll probably still be willing to go to the ground with Albazi. Like, I think that would be a fantastic fight. And for Francisco Figueiredo, I've got the loser of Cody Durden versus Clayton Rodriguez. Clayton, because he's another kind of high physical guy, and if he loses to Durden, it suggests that he needs to work on some things, and like Figueiredo is the perfect kind of blank slate-ish opponent that he can probably do that with. And if Durden loses, I mean, that's just fun. I do have a lot of worries about Francisco Figueiredo, though. I just think that he has a. I'm going to talk about this more later when we get to the next flyweight fight. But he's got a super athlete's game at flyweight, and everybody is fairly athletic. Everyone is pretty damn athletic at the division, and he is trying to out-athlete them, and he's not his brother. I said that in the breakdown. It's not that I don't understand what his game is. He's not oh, what is his name? The dude who fought Woodson. Blanking on the name. Luis Adania. He's not Luis Adania in the sense that, like, I find his game frustrating. It's just, I find his game is just not going to work. Orichi Lang versus Jay Perrin. This was weird because a lot of people thought Perrin won the second round and was gonna win a decision. I don't get it. Like, Orichi, like, he won the third round. He won the third round. He had way too much volume. Orichi Lang didn't hurt him terribly much. Perrin had the best shots he had in the fight. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the adjustments he made. He got aggressive when the striking wasn't working. He tried to implement a wrestling game. Like, he showed a thought progression tree that I appreciate here. But he lost those first two rounds. He actually even got outlanded in the second round. And I'm sorry, that takedown didn't lead to much. And the control against Cage didn't lead to much. So I don't know what people are thinking there. I don't get it. Orichi Lang was just kind of too physical, too strong for him. He was able to hurt him when Perrin really wasn't able to hurt him. And yeah, won the first two rounds, lost the third round. Not much to talk about. I will say that, please, can we not have mixed martial artists be introduced as the pride of Lowell, Massachusetts? That's Mickey Ward country, and Mickey Ward is the pride. And no. Just no. And the Joker nickname also. Just all kinds of cringe on top of each other with Perrin there. I mean, I don't mind Perrin as a fighter. I just don't know how he's going to win fights. Like, this kind of thing is, it feels like he needs more time to develop a game and some good ideas that he's working on. But at the same time, I think his age and the fact that this was his 16th pro fight works against that. He's 29 years old in a division that you age out of pretty quickly. Yeah, he's in the UFC the time that he's probably going to be most ready for it, and I just don't think I think he's bottom of the barrel in the division of bantamweight. I have him against the loser of Tony Gravely and Javid Basharat, and I have Orichi Lang versus Kwai Kokang or Hokang. I think that would be a fun fight. I do have significant worries about Orichi Lang. And it's that I don't think he fights at a high enough pace. I think he relies on stinging people way too much for a guy who doesn't really finish. It's a major, major concern. I'd be interested to see what he does against Kang. If that fight were to be made. That's why I'm interested in it. Victor Altamirano versus Daniel Da Silva. I've said this. I enjoyed the fight. I enjoyed this fight. I enjoyed the Richie Lang fight. I enjoyed the Albazi Figueiredo fight. And I enjoyed Fletcher versus Losa. Those 4 fights got us up to a great start. And then we had a great first round of ridiculousness between Saldana and Woodson and a boogie choke. And then that was where the card kind of cooled off at the Jared Gordon versus Leonardo Santos fight. My problem with De Silva is that he's kind of in Romanov's shoes, in the sense that he's a guy who has an idea and the physicality to do some of it, of being this incredibly flashy fighter. He will overchase submissions, which he did here. He will throw with reckless abandon with no real defense or consideration for where his feet are going to be or what position he's in to receive a takedown. And at the end of the day, that's what ended up with him losing. Altamirano put him on his back, pounded him out. There was an armbar attempt, which is cool and everything, but it was never going to be close to working, and he probably would have been better off instituting some kind of scramble or trying to get back to his feet or anything that would have led to defense that was not just getting punched in the face and hoping for a submission. Because this is a flyweight, and you're not going to generally get a lot of those arm bars. Not generally. And I think he's accustomed to that working. Despite the fact that he's lost a couple times. Because it's not like De Silva is on his first loss here. He's 11-4. He's lost 4 times. He lost very similarly to Francisco Figueiredo with the D-bar submission. He lost fairly similarly to Jeff Molina. There is a serious question mark of fight IQ there. And he's fun, but until he figures it out that he's not just going to out horsepower people, because Altamirano is to the lower end of this flyweight division, both in terms of physical ability and Altamirano also has some terrible footwork. He gets very bladed at times, and he'll switch stances while he's getting punched, and has to rely on durability and just energy to actually to fix that. And I assume we're just going to rebook him against Jake Hadley. For De Silva, I would like to see him fight Dennis Bondar. Is Bondar still on contract? Because, he only had 1 fight, and he lost it. But, I assume he's still around. And, sure, go ahead and do that. De Silva's in the category with, Saldana, where it's there is nothing about you physically that stops you from being a top-end fighter. And it seems like you grasp techniques reasonably well. But you refuse to put things together. And it's just frustrating. Exceptionally frustrating. Is there anything I want to talk about aside from Kayla Harrison from the PFL card and stuff? Is there anything? Oh, there was an Eagle FC fight today. I didn't even know that. Did not even know that. Eagle FC's in kind of this weird place where a lot of their fight cards are not particularly good. And that means I'm not paying all that close attention. So let's see here. Run down the PFL card here. Marcin Hell got a guillotine submission. Always cool. Always fun to see him get it. Pacheco defeated Olena Kolesnik, and Kayla Harrison won. Brandon Logain, Bubba Jenkins will meet in the 145 final. Yeah, not really a lot to talk about. Nothing, no star-making performances, and I don't think there was really. And yeah, the KSW card was actually pretty fun. I got to look at a fair bit of it. Tons of finishes, lots of knockouts. How many knockouts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Five knockouts on an 8-fight card plus 2 submissions. Go check it out. It's a quick one, and I'm not suggesting that any of the fighters are really heading towards like great things, but it was fun. So we've got what coming up in the UFC next? Do we have a fight night coming up here? It is a fight night. We've got the Tai Tuivasa Cyril Gane card, the Paris France card. Yes, first UFC show in France. This is a pretty good card actually for a non pay per view. Like this is better than what we had for the pay per view. Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa, Marvin Vettori versus Robert Whittaker. Alessio Di Chirico is fighting Roman Kopylov. That's kind of a fun, awkward striking matchup. Hawk Paras versus John McDessie. Taylor Lapilus is on the card against Kali Taha. Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. I'm assuming that this is not a prelim fight, that this is out of place on the card here because Joaquin Buckley versus Imamov is listed as a prelim. No, that's an amazing fight. This is a very relevant fight. Get that higher up. And a couple of debuters. Shel Figlak is on the card. Kind of intrigued by what he can do. I do have some worries about it, but I think he's interesting. Seen him a couple of times in Cage Warriors. So yeah, that's the UFC 278 pay-per-view. I will be back with you for predictions on the fight night when I dig it on deep in there. And yeah, as per usual, check out the link tree below wherever you are. I think it's below almost anywhere. You'll find places where you can where you can listen to the podcast. You can check out the YouTube channel. You can check out the Twitch channel. You can check out the Discord and the Facebook group, where I post everything that's coming up in terms of the podcasts. So, not a bad place to be, and particularly the Discord is really interesting. We got a cool fight sim community going on there, and some fighting prediction leagues. So check it out. I will talk to you guys in a couple days.